We have almost survived the month-long break from the UFC. We have an Apex fight night coming up, and then after that, we have UFC 311, an absolutely insane pay-per-view to start the year. Until then, we got to entertain ourselves with some UFC-related content, you know? So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for 2025 in the UFC in bingo card style. So we'll come back throughout the year, see if any of these actually took place. So this is my 2025 bingo card for the UFC. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. And before we get into the video, guys, please make sure to like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, all that good YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want access to bonus content and you want to support the channel further, become a channel member via the link in the description of this video or the join button on our channel homepage. Thank you very much. Back to the video. All right, guys, it's been a cold winter. We got no UFC. So let's look ahead to 2025. Here are my predictions for 2025. Look, I've already done predicting the pay-per-views. I've already done predicting champions at the end of next year. Let's just talk about some things that might happen, that I hope happen, and that I think will happen. These are my predictions, okay? Number one, the fight that we all want to see, I think it's going to take place. Interim champion Tom Aspinall against heavyweight champion Jon Jones. Jon Jones has said that he doesn't want this fight to happen, that he's not interested, that Tom's annoying, the whole thing. We're all very in tune with the Jon Jones situation, okay? And how much he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. I think the UFC is going to throw a huge check at him. I did a video a couple days ago about this fight specifically and everything that leads into it. I think the UFC is going to throw a massive bag at Jon Jones to fight Tom Aspinall, and I think that they're going to make this fight happen. Now, another fight that seems much less likely than Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, but I actually think there's a possibility, is Conor McGregor boxing one of the two Paul brothers. I could see it being against Jake Paul. I could see it being against Logan Paul. The original talk that Conor was putting out there was about Logan. WWE and UFC are under the same banner. It's not a huge stretch of the imagination to think that those two could fight. But there's also the possibility that it's Jake Paul. If Conor ever fights again, I think it's going to be like something easier than MMA that lures him back in like a boxing fight. And if he does do this, I could actually see him never fighting in MMA again, because this Paul fight leads to fighting the other Paul brother. And then that leads to like a KSI fight or something like that. And I don't think we see Conor in the cage ever again if this fight happens, but I do think it's going to. So I'm starting to be on the team that says Conor's never fighting again, as much as I've been coping for the last 3 or so years about it. Moving on from there, the next prediction that I have for UFC in 2025 has to do with former bantamweight champion Sean O'Malley. Now, Sean O'Malley lost his belt at UFC 306, also known as UFC Noche. It was at the Sphere. He lost his title to Merab Dvalishvili. Terrible fight. Sean O'Malley basically didn't show up for the entire fight, with the exception of about 3 exchanges where O'Malley actually did something. Merab's the champion now. He's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov in the co-main event of UFC 311 in just a few weeks. I think that Umar's going to win that fight. I think sometime this year, Sean O'Malley's comeback fight from losing the belt is going to be a Peter Yan rematch. He beat Peter Yan by a split decision to get the #1 contender shot and fight for the belt against Aljamain Sterling. I think what's going to happen is O'Malley is going to fight Peter Yan in a 5-round fight, either that be a fight night main event with fans or a pay-per-view co-main that's 5 rounds. I think Sean O'Malley wins that fight, and I think he goes on to fight Umar Nurmagomedov and win. So one of my predictions for 2025 is that Sean O'Malley regains the bantamweight title probably somewhere around the end of next year. I could see it being the Vegas pay-per-view in December or something like that. Moving on from there, this next prediction has to do with, in my opinion, the second best middleweight of all time behind Anderson Silva. That is Israel Adesanya. He is coming off of back-to-back losses. He lost his belt to Sean Strickland, took roughly a year off, and in that time, Sean Strickland lost the belt to Dricus du Plessis. Adesanya came back for a title fight against du Plessis and lost. Now he's fighting on February 1st against Nassourdine Mavov. I don't know if he wins or loses that fight. I haven't really done my research, put a whole lot of thought into it because we have UFC 311 just before that. But my prediction is that probably following his next loss, Israel Adesanya would hang up the gloves and retire from the sport. I think he's accomplished everything that there is to accomplish. And if he loses to Imavov on February 1st, we're looking at 3 straight losses, a very tall climb back to a belt, unless he wants to move up to 205 and do a trilogy with Alex Pereira. But nobody really seems interested in that fight anymore. That's why I think Israel Adesanya, especially if his next loss comes this year, I think that he retires in 2025. Moving on from there, somebody that I talked about in my first prediction, the Jones versus Aspinall fight, Jon Jones. Now, my prediction is that Jon Jones also retires in 2025. I think that it's potentially now. He might never, ever fight again. But he could fight Tom Aspinall, win, and then retire, or lose, try to get a trilogy, or I'm sorry, a rematch, and then retire. But I think regardless, 2025 is Jon Jones's last year of a career because we're not sure if Aspinall versus Jones ever happens. So I think that we're like semi-lucky if Jon Jones fights in 2025, but we're definitely not going to get Jon Jones in 2026. He'll definitely be gone by then. So my prediction for 2025 is that Jon Jones hangs it up. Moving on from there, one of my favorite fighters, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, former lightweight champion. He lost the belt to, or actually he technically lost the belt on the scales in the Justin Gaethje fight, and then he lost to Islam Makhachev in technically a vacant title fight, but that was essentially a title defense for him. Charles Oliveira, my prediction is that he will be lightweight champion again in 2025. Here's how it happens. You have Islam and Arman in January. I think Islam Makhachev wins that fight, and his next fight is for the 170-pound belt because I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to beat Belal Muhammad, and that opens up the opportunity for Islam to move up to 170 and fight for the belt because Islam has said that he doesn't want to fight against Belal given that they've trained together before. So Islam moves up to 170. I think probably beats Shavkat Rakhmonov, vacates the 155 belt. Oliveira versus somebody for a vacant title fight at 155. I think Oliveira wins that. 2026, we're starting the year with do Bronx as lightweight champion. Moving on from there, the next prediction that I have is a fight to be made in 2025, and I think that is the Gaethje-Poirier trilogy. They're split 1-1. Dustin won the first fight by TKO, punches and bunches up against the fence, TKO Justin Gaethje. And then Justin Gaethje won the rematch for the BMF title. I think it was like UFC 292 or 291, something like that. And yeah, it was 292. No, 291. And Justin Gaethje won via head kick KO, I believe the second round on Poirier. I think they booked this fight, and I think that it's going to be a retirement fight for both guys. I think they both lay down the gloves in the cage after that fight. Not really much else to say about it. There's talks about Ilia Topuria and Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier, Volkanovski, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor. I think it's going to be Gaethje, and then they're both going to retire after. Moving on from there, this next prediction has to do with UFC featherweight champion Ilia Topuria. He has expressed essentially zero interest in staying at 145 pounds. His next fight is most likely going to be a rematch with Alexander Volkanovski, but he wants to fight Islam Makhachev. He wants to fight Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. And I think that after beating, I think he gets 1 or 2 more wins at featherweight. I think he does the Volk rematch, and then I think there's one more fight, maybe the winner of Diego Lopes and Movsar. And then from there, he would move up to 155. But I'm not even super convinced that that second fight would happen. I think maybe he moves up after the Volkanovski rematch. And so that's my prediction, is that at some point in 2025, probably near the end of 2025, Ilia Topuria will be fighting at 155 pounds. Hear me out. Islam beats Arman. Shavkat beats Belal. Islam and Shavkat gets announced. Then you have an Ilia versus Oliveira, either interim or vacant lightweight title fight at some time next year. That would be sick. Maybe early 2026 or something like that. But I think this is a possibility, is Oliveira regaining the belt, Topuria moving up to 55 after one more defense, and then Oliveira versus Topuria for the lightweight title late 2025, potentially 2026, but I think 2025. Moving on from there, the lightweight champion of the world, the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. I think, as I've said multiple times in this video, he becomes double champ. I think he moves up to 170 pounds, fights Shavkat Rakhmonov coming off of a win over Bilal, and wins that fight, becomes double champ, probably retires after that. So Islam Makhachev, double champ in 2025 is my prediction at lightweight and 170. Moving on from there, the very last prediction that I have for my 2025 UFC Bingo Card is the return of Amanda Nunes, coming back, not to fight Juliana Pena, because Juliana Pena called her out when she won her belt over Raquel Pennington. I think that at some point this year, Kayla Harrison defeats Juliana Pena, and then at some point next year, Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes for the women's bantamweight title. I think this is the only thing that brings Nunes out of retirement. They could get a women's main event out of this. You know, it's almost like Nunes is like a free pay-per-view for the UFC. They go, it is the best woman fighter of all time, main event for the pay-per-view. Like, they do have those pay-per-views that they like to kind of take one off. Like, they don't stack the card completely. It's usually with a Pantoja main event like they did at UFC 301. They basically just did Pantoja Urseg title fight main event and Jose Aldo against Jonathan Martinez co-main event. The rest of the card was pretty weak. Same thing here. I could see them doing some random like Salt Lake City card or Canada card, just something that's not like the most destination location for a pay-per-view, because when they are in destination places, when they're in New York, when they're in Miami, when they're in LA, stuff like that, they stack the cards pretty heavily, as you can see with the lineup for UFC 311. So there are my predictions for 2025 in the UFC. Jones versus Aspinall takes place. Conor fights a Paul brother. O'Malley gets the bantamweight belt back. Israel Adesanya retires. Jon Jones retires. Charles Oliveira becomes lightweight champion again. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje fight in a trilogy and retire. Topuria moves up to 155, potentially to fight Oliveira. Islam Makhachev becoming double champ. And Amanda Nunes returning from retirement to take on Kayla Harrison. A very, very sought-after fight in women's MMA, which is a big deal because there really aren't many of them. So that is my 2025 UFC Bingo Card. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks. Thanks for watching this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you want access to bonus content, become a channel member today by clicking the join button on our channel homepage or the link down below this video. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo, in the link down below. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.